Just working on finishing a shelf here. Got a live edge piece of butternut here. One with the classic white brackets for this stylish live edge shelf. Yeah, that'll work. So it's at about this time that we usually go for a level. We want to make sure the shelf is, well, level. So what I might do is set a level on the top of my shelf, and with one screw holding one end in place, I'm going to bring it up and down until that bubble reads right in the middle. This is probably the most common application for a level in woodworking, either leveling shelves or picture frames that are hung on the walls. I also use levels when building some of my furniture. For example, when I built a relationship study, I had a trestle base. I needed to make sure both the top and the bottom of the legs were parallel. So because there weren't many square elements that I could reference a square off of, or even say a bevel gauge, in my shop I often use a vial level like this 2-foot one here. They've got their ups and downs. One of the major downfalls is the lines on them are quite thick, so it's difficult to see exactly when you're right where you should be. And of course, if you're looking a little to the left, a little to the right, that's going to change how that bubble appears in the window as well. And when you think you're good, you can put your second screw in. It's hard to be confident that you have it level. And if you've got a bystander, someone else watching your work, they might say, hey, is that really level? Another tool that I see being used is digital levels. They seem kind of novel. I've tried one in the past. My issue with them is that they're always telling you that you're out by 1/100th of a degree. You're always 1/100th this way or that way, and try to get it 0, it's next to impossible. If you get it finally aligned, you drive your screw and it tweaks it a little bit, and you're not leveled again. Oh crap. So as I drove that second screw, the shelf moved a little bit. Now my bubble isn't centered anymore. I guess it pulled the shelf down a little bit, so now the bubble's higher to this side. My shelf is at a slight incline. I'll have to pull the screw and try it again. And of course now I already have a hole in my wall, so now I have to fill it with toothpicks or something to not follow the same hole. But since it's only my first hole, I've got 2 more holes I can try. So what I'll do is I'll go to hole number 2, try again there. I basically got 3 attempts before I have to start filling or moving the shelf to a different wall. Same thing happened again. Okay, so 2 attempts. I'm kind of close, kind of in the ballpark, but anybody looking at the level can see that it's not level. My shelf is not level. Not exactly a confidence builder. So let's try that again. 3rd hole, I'll have to put some filler into these other 2 holes. Okay, that looks good. Kind of frustrating. If you ever have a helper put up a shelf or hang a picture, all they're going to do is stand back and critique your work, say, hey, that doesn't look level to me. Hard to get good help. And that's not any better. I don't know what your tolerances are when looking for level, but this certainly isn't very comforting. Not a confidence builder at all. Not happy with this. I'll have to fill the holes and try again. This whole level business, if you ask me, is kind of goofy. If I have the shelf on the wall, anything I put on it is going to stay put. Put that there, my screwdriver there. It's not going to roll anywhere. Even this round block of aluminum here, it's not going to go anywhere. But still, as I assemble my shelf, as I hang it on the wall, I really feel I need to have it dead on. Anything less, I don't feel good about it. I feel like I've failed in some way. And you saw how much effort it takes to get it level. There's just no easy way. It seems we're aiming for this level of perfection that just doesn't matter. what I'd like to introduce you to is a better way of leveling a shelf. The first guess gravity gauge features a brass weight and a near frictionless pivot for fast and accurate readings. The pivot is also hollow, making it lightweight, and it provides a convenient place to hang. The construction of the tool is strong and lightweight, and the shape of the frame makes it easy to clamp to surfaces either horizontal or vertical if need be. There are a few other advantages to the first guess gravity gauge as well. Unlike larger 2 and 4 foot levels, this one stores conveniently in a toolbox. It's easy to move around, it's not long and awkward. I've got a handful of smaller levels, but they tend to be very small and not very accurate. And while there are some very accurate small levels out there, they tend to be a little bit too small for furniture scale of work. I think they're more appropriate for leveling shelves in a miniature dollhouse. Okay, so here we have the first guess gravity gauge on my shelf, which is clearly not level. You can see the pendulum hanging down to the right side of the center line, described right here. As I raise the shelf, the pendulum on that near frictionless pivot over, and until I pass my center line, then I can of course bring it down to the point where it is directly in line with my center line, and I have level there. I can go ahead and fasten my screws into place to lock my shelf in. Now, if you're asking how it's any different than a standard bubble level, for example, which I showed you first, you ask a very good point, and the answer is it's not different at all. Where the first guess gravity gauge really sets itself apart is the unique features built into it. So what I can actually do with the first guess gravity gauge is I can rotate my brass weight up and down along the threaded rod. What this does is it changes the curve at which the pendulum moves from a straight curve, where 1 degree of incline in the shelf relates to 1 degree of change in the gravity gauge. Changes from that into a gradual curve, where 1 degree of the shelf, for example, might not result in any change on the gravity gauge. But as I get farther, say towards 45 degrees, the gravity gauge is going to move more and more. This is achieved through a patented magnetic system. As I raise the brass weight, it moves farther and farther away from the magnetic base, and therefore the magnetic field is less intense and it has less of an effect on the first guess gravity gauge. By lowering the brass weight, I bring it closer to that magnetic field, and therefore you have greater attraction between the brass weight and the magnetic base. Beyond that adjustment, there is also a simple calibration you can do with a screwdriver right in the base here. I can fine adjust the calibration of the tool as I like. For example, at the max setting here, the first guess gravity gauge is quite happy to sit right at 0 degrees. Since absolute perfection is rarely required, the first guess gravity gauge makes it fast and easy to set a shelf relatively level, because often close enough really is good enough. One chronic problem with good tools is that they always seem to go missing. People like to borrow them. The gravity gauge has a unique feature which makes it very, let's say, unappealing for others to borrow. What you can do is you can reverse the polarity of the base, and when someone else borrows it, they'll never be able to level this shelf. Okay, a little bit down, a little bit down, a little bit more. Aw, dang it. Come on.